Death doesn't always come with a bang or a bright light. Sometimes it comes with the smell of rubbing alcohol and the rhythmic electronic chirping of a machine that costs more than my first house. I was floating in a white void, a vast expanse of nothingness where time had no meaning, until the pain dragged me back. It wasn't a sharp pain, but a heavy one, a sensation of absolute crushing weight. It felt as if my body had been encased in wet concrete that had slowly hardened overnight, trapping every nerve and muscle in an unyielding prison. I tried to gasp, to pull air into my lungs, but my chest refused to rise. I tried to open my eyes, to see where I was, but my eyelids felt like they were lead curtains welded shut. Panic, cold and primal, surged through me, but I couldn't even shiver. I was a prisoner in my own skin, a mind screaming in a soundless room. Then I heard it. The beep. 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 A heart monitor. I was in a hospital. The voice was impatient, agitated, and painfully familiar. It was Michael, my son, my only child, the boy I had bounced on my knee, the man I had handed the keys to a logistics empire that spanned 3 states. "Keep your voice down, Mike," a woman whispered. Her voice was sharp, like the snap of a dry twig. Vanessa, my daughter-in-law. "He can't hear me, Ness," Michael snapped, his footsteps heavy as he paced the room. Clack, clack, clack. "Look at the chart. Brain activity is minimal. He's a vegetable. He's just existing." I lay there, paralyzed, my mind racing while my body played dead. Money you don't have? I wanted to scream. I had given them everything. I had built Thomas Logistics from a single rusted delivery truck in 1974 into a fleet of 500 vehicles. I had paid for the private schools, the Ivy League tuition, the weddings, the houses. I had cushioned every fall Michael ever took. And now, as I lay helpless, possibly dying, his concern wasn't for my soul. It was for his inheritance. The air in the room was thick, suffocating. It smelled of industrial disinfectant and the cloying, overly sweet scent of Vanessa's perfume, Chanel No. 5, a bottle I knew cost $300 because I saw the charge on the company credit card last month. I felt the vibration of the floor as Michael paced closer to the bed. "I need a drink," Michael muttered. "Sit down," Vanessa hissed. "You need to look distraught when the doctor comes back."
"I have the creditors calling me every 10 minutes about the marina deal, Vanessa," Michael whispered aggressively. If this drags on, the bank freezes the assets during probate. We need the liquidity now. If we miss the payment on the first, we lose the house." The words hit me harder than the heart attack had. The marina deal. I had told him explicitly not to touch that project. I had told him the developers were snakes, that the zoning was a nightmare, that it was a sinkhole for capital. He hadn't listened. He never listened. He had waited until my heart gave out to gamble my legacy on a pipe dream. I lay there, a silent ghost in a room full of the living, listening to my only son discuss my death like it was a business transaction that needed to be expedited. I wanted to scream, to roar like the father who raised him, to tell him to get out of my room and get a job, but my lips wouldn't move. I couldn't even twitch a finger to show them I was there. If you have ever realized that the people you would die for are the very ones waiting for you to die, you know why I had to survive this. I had to wake up, to stop them. The door opened with a soft whoosh of air pressure. The pacing stopped. "Dr. Eris," Vanessa said, her voice instantly transforming from a harsh whisper to a trembling, theatrical soprano. "Please." A deep, calm voice replied. I felt the presence of the doctor moving to the side of my bed. I felt a pin light flash against my closed eyelids, a burst of red in my darkness. I wish I had better news. Thomas has stabilized physically. His heart is beating on its own, though the rhythm is fragile. However, the neurological exams are discouraging. He is in what we call a locked-in state, or perhaps a persistent vegetative state. "So he's—" Michael asked. He tried to sound hopeful, but I heard the hunger in his voice. He wasn't asking for a miracle. He was asking for a receipt.
It is difficult to say with absolute certainty this early, Dr. Eris said, sounding weary, but we are approaching a critical decision point. If he were to suffer another cardiac event, which is highly probable given the damage to the left ventricle, we need to know what his wishes would be regarding resuscitation, life support. This was the moment. This was the test. A loyal son would ask for time. A loving son would ask for every machine, every drug, every prayer in the arsenal. Michael cleared his throat.
I could picture him straightening his tie, putting on his CEO face, the mask he wore when he was bankrupting my companies. "Doctor," Michael began, his voice steady, practiced, stripped of all doubt. "Dad was very clear with us about this." "Liar," I screamed in the silence of my skull. "We talked about the erratic supply chain costs last Christmas. We drank eggnog and I told you to stop buying sports cars." "He never wanted to be a vegetable," Michael lied, the words flowing smooth as oil. "He hated machines. He was a proud man, Doctor, a strong man. He told us explicitly that if it ever came to this, if he couldn't walk, couldn't work, couldn't feed himself, we should let him go." "Yes," Vanessa chimed in, stepping closer to the bed. I felt her hand rest on my arm. Her skin was cold. "It's what he would have wanted. Dignity. We just want him to have dignity. It breaks our hearts, but..." The rage that surged through me was so hot I thought it would melt the paralysis. "Dignity? You want me dead so you can pay off a loan shark in Miami? I fought for every inch of my life. I crawled out of poverty. I built a world for you. I have a new distribution center breaking ground in the spring. I have a granddaughter on the way that I haven't even met yet. I want to live." But my eyelids remained heavy, sealed shut by the concrete weight of my own body. I felt Dr. Eris hesitate. There was a long silence, filled only by the beep, beep, beep of the monitor. "I see," Dr. Eris said slowly. "Without a written advance directive on file, the decision falls to the next of kin." "We're certain," Michael said quickly, too quickly. "Very well," Dr. Eris said. "I will prepare the paperwork for a do not resuscitate order. We will move him to palliative care." "Thank you, Doctor," Vanessa whispered. The door opened and closed. The doctor was gone. I was alone with them. The mask slipped completely off. "Thank God," Michael breathed out, a long, shuddering exhale. "If he hangs on for another month, the creditors called a loan. We'd be on the street, Ness." "Just sign the paper, Mike," Vanessa hissed, her voice low and venomous. "Don't get sentimental now. Once the DNR is active, we just wait for the next episode. The doctor said his heart is weak. It won't take long. Maybe a day, maybe two." "I know," Michael said. "I know. It's just looking at him. He's not sleeping, Michael. He's gone. The lights are on, but nobody's home. Stop projecting. Think about the Aspen house. Think about the debt." I focused every ounce of my will, every drop of energy in my dying body, on my right hand. I needed to signal. I needed to make a noise. I needed to knock a cup off the table. "Move," I commanded my thumb. "Move, you useless piece of flesh." The monitor's beep sped up slightly. Beep, beep, beep. My heart rate rising with the sheer force of my rage. "Michael?" asked, sounding spooked. "He's probably in pain," Vanessa said dismissively. "Or it's just a reflex. Ignore it. Look at this listing on Zillow." They turned away. They ignored the scream of my heart because they were too busy spending the money they would harvest from my corpse. Hours bled into one another. Darkness fell. The room grew quiet, save for the hum of the machines. Michael and Vanessa eventually left, pleading exhaustion, heading to my estate to drink my wine and sleep in my guest rooms. I was alone in the dark. The silence was terrifying. It was the silence of the grave. Then the door opened again. Soft rubber soles squeaked on the linoleum. "Hello, Thomas," a gentle voice whispered. It wasn't Vanessa. It wasn't a doctor. It was a nurse. I smelled peppermint and soap. "I'm Elena," she said softly. "I'm your night nurse. I know you've had a long day. Those people..." She moved around the bed, checking the IV lines, adjusting the sheets. Her hands were warm, confident, but gentle. She didn't treat me like a slab of meat. She touched my shoulder as she leaned over to check the monitor. "I'm going to turn you, okay? Just to keep the blood flowing." She worked efficiently, and as she worked, she talked. She talked about the rain outside. She talked about her son's soccer game. She spoke to me as if I were sitting in the chair next to her, sipping coffee. "I know you're in there, Thomas," she whispered suddenly, leaning close to my ear.
I froze, metaphorically. My heart skipped a beat. I saw your heart rate spike when your son was talking about the money, she murmured, her voice barely audible. I was watching the remote monitor at the station. That wasn't a reflex. She took my right hand in hers. She squeezed it. I can't stop them from signing the papers, Thomas. I'm just a nurse. They're the family. But you can stop them. You have to fight. You hear me? Her belief was the spark I needed. It was the fuel that ignited the engine.
I wasn't just a dying old man anymore. I was Thomas Miller, the man who stared down union strikes and hostile takeovers. I focused on my index finger. I visualized the nerve endings like copper wires. I poured 50 years of stubbornness, 50 years of grit into that one digit. Move. It twitches. It was microscopic. A flutter, like a moth's wing against a window pane. Elena gasped. She froze. She squeezed my hand harder. "Do it again," she commanded, her voice fierce. I screamed in my mind. I pushed through the concrete. "Move!" My finger curled. It pressed against her palm. A deliberate, undeniable movement. Elena let out a shaky breath. "Okay," she breathed. "Okay, you're there." She looked at the door, paranoid, making sure we were alone. She leaned back down. "We have a secret," she whispered. "If I tell the doctor now, and you don't do it again when he's here, they'll say I'm crazy. They'll say it was a spasm. We need you stronger. You rest tonight. You gather every ounce of strength you have. I'm watching you." She squeezed my hand one last time, a pact forged in the shadows of the ICU. The night passed in a blur of determination. I didn't sleep. I practiced. Twitch, rest, twitch, rest. I was rebuilding my empire, one nerve at a time. Morning came too soon. The harsh fluorescent lights flickered on, banishing the shadows and bringing the vultures back. Michael and Vanessa walked in with Dr. Aris. Michael looked rested, shaved, smelling of my aftershave. Vanessa was wearing black, as if she were already in mourning. "Good morning," Dr. Aris said solemnly. He held out a clipboard, the Do Not Resuscitate order. The black ink on the page seemed to smell of betrayal. "If you sign this," the doctor explained, "it means that if Thomas enters cardiac arrest or respiratory failure, we will not perform CPR, we will not intubate." Michael didn't hesitate. He didn't look at me. He looked at the clipboard. "I'm signing it," Michael said. He took the pen. I heard the scratch of the tip against the paper. Scritch, scratch. It sounded like a knife tearing through canvas. It sounded like the severance of the bond between father and son. They had signed my death warrant. They placed the clipboard at the foot of my bed, a legal shield against saving my life. "It's done," Vanessa whispered, squeezing Michael's arm. They looked at my face, searching for signs of fading, waiting for the end, but they didn't look closely at the monitor.
They didn't see that my heart rate isn't erratic anymore. It wasn't the fluttering panic of a victim. It was steady, rhythmic, deliberate. It was the rhythm of a predator waiting in the long grass. They thought they had signed an end to their problems. They had no idea they had just started a war. I am not dying today. I am plotting. They say the hearing is the last thing to go, but they don't tell you that it's a curse, not a mercy. 3 weeks had passed since Michael signed the paper that authorized the doctors to let me die. I had been moved from the high-tech purgatory of the ICU to a private hospice room, a place with soft lighting, floral curtains, and an oppressive silence designed for comfortable dying. The air here didn't smell like antiseptic anymore. It smelled of potpourri and resignation. To the world, I was a tragic figure, Thomas Miller, the logistics tycoon, fading away in a persistent vegetative state. To my son and daughter-in-law, I was a stubborn appliance that refused to break down on schedule. I lay in the bed, my body a heavy, useless casing around a mind that was screaming for release. Michael and Vanessa visited sparingly. They didn't come to hold my hand or read to me. They came to audit the timeline of my death. "How long will it take?" Michael asked, his voice sharp with irritation. He was standing at the foot of my bed, scrolling through his phone. "It varies, Mr. Miller," the hospice nurse replied, her tone clipped. She didn't like him. I could tell by the way she adjusted my blankets with aggressive protection. "Your father has a strong heart." "He looks like he's grimacing. Maybe we should increase the morphine drip, just to be sure he's—" I knew that code. Comfortable meant sedated. Comfortable meant depressed respiration. They weren't asking for pain relief. They were asking for an overdose wrapped in compassion.
"He is on the maximum safe dose, ma'am," the nurse said firmly. "We just want him to have dignity," Michael muttered, turning away. God, this is dragging on. I listened to their footsteps fade down the hallway, the heavy thud of the door sealing me back into the silence. Rage is a powerful fuel. It burned in my gut, hotter than the fever they kept checking for. They were measuring me for a coffin, while I was measuring the distance between my thumb and forefinger.
They believed I was a vegetable. They were wrong. The real work began at midnight. The door opened softly, and the scent of peppermint and cheap soap filled the room. Elena. "Coast is clear, Thomas," she whispered. She locked the door. She moved to the side of the bed and deactivated the bed alarm. Then, gently, she placed her hands behind my shoulders and hoisted me up to a 45-degree angle. The change in perspective was dizzying, blood rushing from my head, but it made me feel human again. "Okay," she said, pulling a blue rubber stress ball from her pocket. She placed it in my right hand. "You did 3 seconds yesterday. Give me 5 today." I focused. I closed my eyes, not that it mattered, and visualized the nerves in my arm lighting up like a highway grid. I poured every ounce of frustration, every ounce of betrayal into my hand. Squeeze. My fingers curled. The rubber yielded. 1, 2. Elena counted, her voice tight with excitement. 4. "Come on, Thomas. Don't quit on me." I released. My arm trembled uncontrollably, exhausted as if I had just lifted a semi-truck. "Good," she whispered, wiping sweat from my forehead. "Now, speech." I opened my mouth. My tongue felt like a dry sponge. My throat was raw gravel. Elena. I croaked. It was ugly. It was weak. It was the most beautiful sound I had ever made. "Loud and clear," she smiled, patting my hand. "We're getting there, but you'll have to keep quiet during the day. If they know you're waking up, Thomas, I don't know what they'll do, but I heard Michael on the phone today." I nodded, a microscopic movement of my chin. I had sworn Elena to secrecy, promising her in broken whispers that I would protect her job and her future with my life. She was my witness. She was the only reason I wasn't dead. But I needed more than a nurse. I needed a shark. 2 nights later, Elena sneaked a visitor in through the service elevator at 2 a.m. Arthur walked in. He smelled of stale cigarettes and old leather. Arthur had been my lawyer for 30 years. He wore cheap suits and drove a beat-up Ford, but he knew where every legal body was buried in this city because he had dug half the holes. Elena raised the head of the bed. Arthur pulled up a chair close to my face. He didn't look at me with pity. He looked at me with a cold, calculating fury. "Elena told me," Arthur whispered. "I didn't believe her until I saw the logbook. The DNR is on file, Tom."
Michael signed it the morning after the stroke. If you code right now, they let you die. "Let it stand," I rasped. The effort made my chest ache. Arthur frowned, his bushy eyebrows knitting together. "What? Tom, I can file an emergency injunction in the morning." "No," I whispered, forcing the words out through the gravel in my throat. "Let them think they won. If we fight now, they run, they hide." Arthur leaned back, a slow realization dawning on his face. He nodded. "I want to go home," I said. "Michael asked for home." "He did," Arthur confirmed. "He wants access to the house safe." "Let him," I said. "Take me home. It makes them." We devised the plan in the dark, the 3 of us huddled like conspirators in a revolution. I would play the part of the dying patriarch for a few more days. I would let them move me back to the estate. I would let them think the end was hours away. And then, when they were drunk on victory, I would wake up. The transition home was brutal. They loaded me into an ambulance like a sack of potatoes. The ride was bumpy, every pothole sending a jolt of pain through my atrophied muscles. Michael rode in the front seat, not holding my hand but texting. I could hear the ding of outgoing messages every 30 seconds. When the gurney rolled through the front doors of my estate, the house I had built with my own hands, the house where I had raised him, the atmosphere hit me. It wasn't one of mourning, it was a party. I could smell it, expensive cologne, the distinct yeasty scent of champagne. The house was filled with people. "Bring him into the living room," Michael directed the paramedics. "Park him by the window."
He likes the view. I wanted to vomit. They wheeled me into the corner, facing the garden, but the reflection in the glass gave me a view of the room. There were 20 people there. Not family, not friends. Sharks in Italian suits. In reality, it was a networking event held over my dying body. "Thanks for coming, everyone," Michael's voice boomed. "It's a hard time, but Dad would want us to keep building." "To Thomas," someone toasted. "To the future," Michael directed. I sat there, slumped in the wheelchair, a blanket draped over my hands to hide the fact that I was gripping the armrests. I listened to the clinking of glasses. I listened to the laughter. The midpoint twist came an hour later. The guests had thinned out, leaving only the heavy hitters.
Michael stood by the fireplace, my fireplace, holding a glass of my vintage 25-year-old scotch. He was talking to a man I recognized instantly, Varga, a shady developer I had refused to do business with for decades. Varga built cheap, dangerous condos and laundered money for the cartels. "The old man is as good as gone, Varga," Michael laughed, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. "The DNR is ironclad. The doctor says his heart is operating at 20%. "Those trucks, Mike?" he asked, his voice like dry leaves. "I need those trucks, Mike." "Yours," Michael said. "Once he kicks it, I'm selling the entire logistics fleet to you. Pennies on the dollar. I don't care about the business. I just want the cash out." Varga asked, glancing toward my corner. "He won't," Vanessa interjected, walking up and stroking Michael's arm, looking at me with disdain. "And even if he did, we have power of attorney. We'd just declare him incompetent. He's finished." I was sitting 10 feet away. My hands were under the thick wool blanket. Under that blanket, I made a fist. I squeezed until my nails cut into my palm, until I felt the warm trickle of blood. A ghost? No, I wasn't a ghost. I was the haunting. I closed my eyes and breathed. 1, 2, 3. I am done waiting. The climax arrived 2 days later. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The house was quiet, save for Michael and Vanessa arguing in the kitchen about which vacation home to buy first. The doorbell rang. "Arthur," Michael shouted. I heard the front door open. "Good afternoon, Michael," Arthur's voice carried down the hall. "Arthur," Michael sounded confused. "We didn't call you. Dad can't do business." "I'm here for the reading of the asset transition," Arthur said smoothly. "Standard protocol before the end. Greed is a powerful key. It opens any door." "Oh," Michael said, his tone instantly changing. "Well, come in." They gathered in the living room. Michael and Vanessa sat on the leather sofa, holding hands, looking solemn. They looked like vultures waiting for the carcass to cool. I was in my wheelchair, facing them, my head lolled to the side, my eyes half closed. Arthur sat on the ottoman, opening his battered briefcase. He pulled out a document. "This is the current DNR order," Arthur said, holding it up. "That's right," Michael said, nodding gravely. "It was the hardest thing I ever had to do, but Dad, he was adamant." "I see," Arthur said. He pulled out a tablet from his bag. Michael froze. Arthur tapped the screen.
The volume was turned up. My voice, clear and strong from 3 weeks ago, filled the room. "Elena, if anything happens, I want full measures. I'm not done yet. Don't let them pull the plug." Michael turned pale. That's fake. That's AI." Vanessa shrieked, jumping to her feet. "He can't sign anything. He's a vegetable." Arthur looked at me. The room went silent. I took a deep breath. I focused on the muscles in my neck. It hurt. It felt like tearing rusty wire, but I lifted my head. The movement was jagged, mechanical, but powerful. I straightened my spine. I opened my eyes fully, locking my gaze onto my son. The color drained from Michael's face so fast it looked like he was the one dying. He stumbled back, knocking over his scotch glass. "Hello, Michael," I said. My voice was rough, sounding like grinding stones, but it filled the room with the authority of a man who had commanded armies of workers. He whispered, his voice trembling. "You, alive," I finished. No, Dad,
he stammered, looking for a lie that would save him. You thought I was dead, I rasped. You sold my fleet to Varga. I reached into the side pocket of my wheelchair. My hand shook, but I controlled it. I pulled out the copy of the DNR order Arthur had given me earlier. You signed this, I said, holding the paper up. My hand was steady now. You signed my death warrant so you could pay off a gambling debt, I roared. A flash of my old strength returned, fueled by the adrenaline of pure justice. I took the paper in both hands. It took effort. My muscles burned like fire, but I ripped it. Rip. The sound was louder than a gunshot in the silent room. I tore it again, and again. I threw the confetti pieces at his feet. The police are waiting at the gate, I told them, my voice calm now, the storm having passed. Attempted manslaughter, fraud, elder abuse. You wanted my legacy, Michael. You have it. You have my name. Michael fell to his knees, sobbing, reaching for my wheelchair. You ceased to be my son the moment you decided my life was less valuable than your debt, I said coldly. Vanessa tried to run toward the back door, but heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway. 2 uniformed officers stepped into the room. Arthur had timed it perfectly. Michael and Vanessa Miller, the officer said, pulling out handcuffs. I watched them being dragged out. Michael was weeping, begging, blaming Vanessa.
Vanessa was screaming that she was pregnant. Another lie. The front door slammed shut. The house was quiet. The party was over. The vultures were caged. I sat by the window, watching the red and blue lights of the police cruiser fade down the long driveway. I was exhausted. My body felt heavy again, but it was a good heaviness, the heaviness of work completed. Elena stepped out from the kitchen, where she had been waiting. She walked over and adjusted the blanket on my lap. You did good, Thomas, she whispered. Arthur walked to the sideboard. He picked up the bottle of 25-year-old scotch Michael had been drinking. He poured a very small amount into a crystal glass, just a thimbleful. He walked over and placed it in my hand. Doctor's orders, Arthur smiled. I took the glass. My hand trembled, the scotch rippling in the glass, but I held it steady. I looked at the shredded paper on the floor, the remnants of my death warrant. I survived the heart attack. I survived the betrayal. And now I had a company to rebuild and a granddaughter to find. I raised the glass to the empty room. To life, I whispered. And I took a sip.